Imagine you're hunting 40,000 years ago. The chase has lasted for hours. A wounded deer races through rocky terrain, and your group follows close behind. Then, one wrong step. Your foot slips. You tumble down a steep hillside. A sharp pain shoots through your leg. You try to stand, but you can't. Your bone is broken. Today, an ambulance would be on its way. Doctors would take an X-ray. A cast would hold the bone in place. Within weeks, you'd be walking again. But in the Stone Age, none of those things existed. There were no hospitals, no surgeons, no painkillers, no antibiotics. And every hour you remained on the ground increased the chance that a predator would find you first. So, what really happened if an ancient human was seriously injured? For a long time, scientists assumed the answer was simple. If you couldn't walk, you died. But archaeology tells a very different story. Across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, researchers have uncovered skeletons with healed fractures that should have been fatal, broken arms that had completely mended, leg bones that had healed after months of recovery, even crushed joints showing clear signs that the person had lived for years after the injury. These discoveries reveal something extraordinary. Ancient humans weren't simply surviving on their own, they were helping each other survive. One of the most remarkable examples comes from Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq. There, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a Neanderthal man who had suffered devastating injuries during his lifetime. He had lost part of one arm, he was blind in one eye, his hearing was severely damaged. One of his legs had been permanently injured, leaving him with a noticeable limp. Yet despite all of these disabilities, he didn't die young. He lived for many years. That discovery forced scientists to ask an astonishing question. How could someone with injuries this severe survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth? The answer wasn't stronger bones or better luck. It was something far more powerful, the people around him. Because the greatest survival tool ancient humans ever developed wasn't a sharper spear or a better fire. It was their willingness to care for someone who could no longer care for themselves. And that single discovery would completely change our understanding of what it truly meant to be human. The discovery at Shanidar Cave completely changed the way scientists viewed ancient humans. For decades, Neanderthals had been portrayed as primitive creatures that survived only through strength. But the skeleton known as Shanidar I told a very different story. This individual had suffered injuries that should have made survival nearly impossible. His left arm had been crushed and was likely amputated above the elbow. He was blind in one eye. His hearing had been severely reduced. His right leg showed signs of major damage, leaving him with a permanent limp. Yet he lived for years after these injuries occurred. That raises an obvious question. How? A person with those disabilities couldn't easily hunt large animals. He couldn't travel long distances with the group. He would have struggled to defend himself against predators. The only explanation is that others helped him. Someone gathered food for him. Someone protected him. Someone stayed behind when he couldn't keep up. In other words, ancient humans didn't survive because every individual was strong. They survived because they refused to abandon the weak, and Shanidar wasn't the only example. In Dmanisi, Georgia, archaeologists discovered the skull of an early human who had lost nearly all of their teeth. The individual survived for years after losing the ability to chew properly. Without modern dental care, eating tough meat or raw plants would have been almost impossible. Researchers believe other members of the group likely prepared softer food and shared it with them. Another remarkable discovery came from La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France. An elderly Neanderthal showed signs of severe arthritis and worn-down teeth. Despite these conditions, he reached an age that was uncommon for the time. Once again, it suggested long-term care from family or companions. But broken bones presented another challenge. Without hospitals or casts, how could they heal? Scientists believe ancient humans relied on one thing the human body has always been capable of: healing itself. If a broken bone remained still long enough, new bone tissue would slowly form around the fracture. Natural splints made from straight branches, wrapped tightly with animal hide or plant fibers, may have helped keep injured limbs from moving. Although materials rarely survive in the archaeological record, similar techniques have been used by traditional societies around the world for thousands of years. Recovery, however, demanded something even more valuable than medicine: time. Weeks without hunting, weeks without traveling, weeks depending entirely on others. That wasn't just an act of kindness. It was an investment in the group's future. But even if a broken bone healed, another invisible danger remained. One that ancient humans feared more than almost anything else: infection. A small cut could become life-threatening, and surviving that battle was often far more difficult than surviving the injury itself. A broken bone wasn't always the greatest threat. Often, the real danger was something ancient humans couldn't even see. Infection, a deep cut from a stone tool, a bite from a wild animal, or a wound left exposed for too long, could allow bacteria to enter the body. Today, a simple course of antibiotics can stop many infections within days. But 40,000 years ago, there were no medicines of that kind. If an infection spread through the bloodstream, it could become deadly. Yet archaeological evidence suggests that many ancient humans recovered from serious injuries. How? Scientists believe our ancestors relied on a combination of natural healing, clean water, rest, and perhaps even medicinal plants. Some Neanderthal sites have revealed traces of plants such as yarrow and chamomile. Knowledge like this wasn't written in books. It was passed from one generation to the next. A child watched an elder treat a wound. Years later, that child became the one caring for someone else. Over thousands of years, experience became humanity's first medicine. The human body also played a remarkable role. Bones naturally repair themselves when they're kept still. Cuts begin to close within days. Our immune system fights millions of harmful bacteria every single day. Ancient humans didn't understand biology, but they understood something just as important: rest, protection, and patience. The greatest medicine wasn't always a plant. Sometimes it was the people around you. If your family brought you food, kept you warm beside the fire, protected you while you couldn't walk, your chances of survival increased dramatically. This may be the greatest lesson archaeology has taught us. Humans didn't become the world's most successful species because we were the fastest. We weren't the strongest. We didn't have the sharpest teeth or the largest claws. Instead, we survived because we worked together. Every healed fracture, every elderly skeleton, every injured individual who lived for years after a devastating accident tells the same story. Someone cared, someone shared their food, someone refused to leave another person behind. The next time you visit a hospital or see a cast protecting a broken arm, remember that caring for the injured didn't begin with modern medicine. Its roots stretch back tens of thousands of years, long before cities, long before civilization, long before written history. Somewhere beside a campfire, one ancient human sat quietly beside another who could no longer walk. They didn't have doctors, they didn't have hospitals, but they had compassion. And perhaps that simple act of helping someone survive was one of the most important discoveries our species ever made. Because in the end, the greatest survival tool ancient humans ever created wasn't fire or stone weapons, it was each other.